Hello, everyone. As Elizabeth mentioned, chanterelles are probably going to be popping. We got more rain today. We had rain a few days ago. Hopefully it keeps going and things don't start drying up to a crisp. So I'll probably try and set up a foray this weekend, maybe on Saturday, something like a Lake Bernard Frank or Lake Needwood or something like that. And we'll go take a look around and see what's happening out there. All right, let's jump into the table. All right, first one here, submitted by Douglas Miller. Pretty common one, found it at Lake Roland. Looking a little closer, underside was a bit blurry, but you can see it has some pretty large pores after it's gotten older here. It's got this scaly looking top with the black base. This is pretty typical of these when they get older. They usually have, they'll start blackening, and then the whole stem where it's connected, you can see also down here. It's basically a black base. Pretty common to find these when you're hunting morels. This is Polyporus squamosus, or well, it's Serioporus squamosus now. They keep changing the names. In the books, you may still, in older books, it's going to be Polyporus squamosus. Dryad saddle. You can see them scattered, throughout the year, but you'll see a lot more of them hunting morels and such. If you do find one, they are edible, and when they're really young. Some people don't like them, but if you do find one, cut a piece off and smell it and see what you think it smells like. All right. Alan Pepper found this in someone's lawn. Kind of looks like a toasted marshmallow to me. And when you can see where he pulled it up, you kind of start seeing this varnishy brown orange coloration. Kind of cool that he cut it, because that's actually one of the features you can use when trying to identify Ganodermas now. So this is one of your varnish shelves, or Lingshi, reishi mushroom. I am not 100%. I think I see melanized bands, but so some of the things that you need to look for when you're really trying to dig into Ganodermas, especially the varnish shelf ones, is looking at the coloration on the inside of the flesh. And so some will be pale, some will be dark brown, some will be lighter brown, and then they'll have zonations of color. And apparently you can kind of start seeing melanized bands. Now I think I see those there, but like I said, I'm not like 100% sure, because I haven't been with somebody that knows exactly what this is supposed to look like. So that would lead this one to Ganoderma Kurtisia. Apparently, if it didn't have melanized bands, then it could be Ganoderma sessile. They're all considered reishi. They all have the medicinal qualities. So it depends on how deep you want to delve into this, but it's kind of interesting that they've actually shown, like, even looking at the different colorization of the internal flesh can kind of help get you there. It's pretty interesting to me anyway. All right, Fiona found this. She said Nerotula poplar. I'm guessing it was just kind of like a tulip poplar woods. This looks like it's growing out of the log. I don't believe that's actually the case. You can tell here, this looks more like your typical polypore, kind of resembling a little bit the hen of the woods with the fronds out like that. You can see this one's got much more yellow coloration and kind of some dark in the center. And if you look here, probably a little slug or something that started nibbling on this, and it's starting to oxidize to this dark black color. So this is Meripolis samstanii. It's the black staining polypore. And so this picture was like nice and pristine, and she hadn't touched it or anything like that. And by the time she got home, it looked like this. So black staining polypore isn't one of those super quick oxidizer. Like sometimes you'll find boletes and you'll cut them and it'll instantly stain blue. It actually is kind of slow. So if you want to see it, you might want to break a piece off and carry it with you. Or like she did, she brought it home. And then by the time she got home, all the places it got bruised are starting to oxidize to that black color. This is another edible, supposedly. I'm not personally a fan of it. Some people love this. It can be quite tough, although at this age, it's very nice and young. So these little edges of these fronds would probably be pretty tender still. So when it starts getting a little bit older, it's going to be really tough. But some people will make a mushroom stock out of that. And it's very strongly mushroom flavored. And so if you like that, you know, give it a try. It's actually a little too much for me. All right. Okay, here goes Mitch with his little bitty white things on a log. So Jeremy George found this one at Newtown Neck State Park. I wasn't too sure what to tell him the other day when he sent it to me. It looks kind of Zylaria-like, and if you're not sure what that is, if you know what dead man's fingers are, that's a Zylaria. It's an ascomycete. One thing that I didn't know that I found out when I was looking this up is, so this is probably, you know, there's probably a bunch of these, but so I may be kind of lumping here, but this is a Zylaria Longiana, I believe. And I believe, and I know on our last foray, or the foray before that, or even both of them, we found a Zylaria that was similar to this. I believe it's Zylaria Cornidame or something along those lines. It's kind of like in between this. So it's bigger than this, but it's smaller than dead man's fingers. And it was growing all over around the bases of trees. And usually when you see something like a Zylaria, like dead man's fingers, it's like a gnarly black looking thing. And I always thought that this white coloration was just because it's young and it's eventually going to turn black as it matures. Well, that is the case, but it just so happens that this is an anamorphic stage. So this is actually producing like conidia or asexual spores. And so when you see these and they have that white tip on them, that's actually producing conidia, asexual spores, and it will eventually mature into the teleomorphic stage where it'll start creating parathecia, which are the little flasks that the sexual spores are created, and the asci will poke through the holes and squirt the spores out. So this same fruiting body over time will mature and produce both forms of spores. I didn't know that, but if you find the white ones, then that's the anamorphic stage. All right, Tom Mccoy sent this. He was apparently out in Maine at the Eagle Hill Institute studying lichens. And so you can see there's a good number of lichens on this tree here. And the ones he was focusing on were some of these Crestos lichens. And me, I'd look at this and think like, oh, that's the same, and that little smoosh is the same, and that's the same, and that's the same, and that's the same, and that's the same. But if you go out there at night and you shine a UV light on it, well, this, and this are the same, which would kind of indicate like there, that little splotch. I guess this little splotch or right here, and a little splotch up there. But these are different, even though they look very similar. In fact, this one and this one might be different considering they're fluorescing in a different color. So they may look really similar, but they're probably different organisms. He said this is Okra Lechia Arboria, which is one of the Crestos lichens. Thought that was pretty cool. Look, there's even a spot growing on this little branch poking out over there. Anyway, UV lights can reveal some pretty nifty things sometimes. All right, this was submitted by Chris Bowen. Got this at Rock Creek Park. He was taking a hike to see if he could see some chanterelles popping up. I guess he was a bit early. So I'm sure you guys, if you've been tuning into the meetings, have seen this, something similar to this quite a few times. This is our summer oyster though. So these tend to be lighter in color, a little bit smaller, sometimes have a more defined stem on them. They still have the current gills, similar oyster mushroom aroma, I'm calling this one Plurotus Pulmonarius. There's one that's very similar, Plurotus populinus, that only grows on populus trees, which is like aspens and cottonwoods. And I don't know what kind of wood that is. So anyway, oyster mushrooms popping up. These tend to be much more thinner fleshed. Anyway, last but not least, everybody take a good look at these. Jim Stratton found these in a neighbor's yard. This is a good one to learn because you don't want to mess with it. So he did take a couple of decent close pictures of it. You can see it's got pretty close gills. The cap has, scales, but the scales are part of the cap. So unlike an Amanita that would have a universal veil covering the entire mushroom, these scales, and that's the remnants of that universal veil breaking apart, and you can peel them off. These scales are actually part of the cap tissue. So if you tried to peel them off, you'd start peeling off some of the cap tissue as well. It has a ring. It's all white, except for the brown coloration. A lot of times the stem will kind of discolor brown colors. It's a pretty persistent ring. So a lot of Amanitas have those like weak, crumbly, skirt-like rings. This one's pretty persistent and leathery. And you can see he's doing the right thing. Snipped it off at the top, put it down on a piece of paper. You'd want to cover that with a bowl or something. Looks like he's got one of our old spore print taker pieces of paper over there. And you can see after he took the picked the cap up, this picture, it's looking a little yellow. So this is a different picture in different lighting, and you can see it's definitely got some green spores dropping. If you would have left it longer, you would have gotten a much more dense spore drop, and you'd see that like I've done this and it's been bright green. Usually it's kind of dark green like this. You can also see in this picture, the gills are free, similar to an Amanita. So there's like a little ring of tissue there where it's going back up into the cap and not attaching to the stem. So that's Chlorophyllum molybdites, the green-spored Lepiota. That is the main poisoner in the country. That's the one that gets most people. It won't necessarily kill you, but you'll wish you were dead. It'll be coming out of both ends. It's not something you want to mess with. So be careful. And they're beautiful. They can come up in abundance in people's yards, but they will make you sick. Anyway, thanks everybody for the submissions, and take care. See you out there sometime.
Mitch, I had heard that the Chlorophyllum molybdites actually makes about 2/3 of the people sick who actually eat it.
I've heard some people can eat it and not be affected, but I don't want to take that chance.
Right. I found this out when I was identifying Rhacodes, and before it was moved into the chlorophyllum category, and it did make me sick. So I've never tried this one, but the related one does.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that high of, like, I thought it might be like 5% it didn't make sick, but so I'm not sure. But I know there are some people who have eaten it and not gotten sick, but I certainly wouldn't want to take a chance.
I'd like to share the screen just to show why we're going to have a lot of stuff on the table soon, which is the precipitation analysis. If you guys have not been looking at that, let me see if I can find it here. Okay, so this is this is going to be posted in the chat, but this website is really cool in the sense that it will show you the percentage of departure from normal, or the total amount of rain you had. This is me in Silver Spring at the tip of DC. You see this purple? We're like 400% of normal for the last 7 days. And you can go down and look for the last 14 days. And what you see in our area is we're still doing pretty good, around 300% of normal in the last 14 days. But you can see these dry areas too. So this is kind of helpful if you're going to go out and look for chanterelles, figure out where it's been raining.
Absolutely. Very nice.
Hey Mitch, someone's asking in the chat, do the green gills grow in fairy rings? They're just
Oh yeah, a lot of times they do.
Yeah.
And if you weren't aware, fairy rings it's kind of neat. I mean, what's happened is you got a spore landed and it starts eating right there, right? And so it eats up those nutrients and it starts moving its way out. And so you've got the mycelium growing out and searching for more food, more food, more food. And so it's just making its way out and to get food. And that just happens to be where the mushrooms, that's how fairy rings happen. You've heard of ringworm, right? It's the same thing. It's basically eating your skin and then it's got to move out and move out and move out and to get the new food. And so basically if you have a ringworm, you have a fairy ring on yourself.